Class, or better yet, good evening. This is ATM Burnett with SureSync assignment number 4. I do apologize for not being able to attend the session tonight. I have to go to a church meeting, and I sit on the trustee board at my church, so this is going to be a very important meeting for the fourth quarter. So I do apologize for not attending. Moving on to my assignment, talking about the risk plan that I would present to a CEO, understanding that people's attention spans are kind of short, and understanding information, when you give them too much, it kind of clouds their judgment. So my risk mitigation plan, I'm going to use an acronym called ART. And so if we all like fine art, we want to make sure our art is pristine, it looks well. And I'm going to break it down in the 3 categories. Assess. What assets do we have that are part of the hospital? And all those are all things that make it the inner workings of the hospital, and that make it work together as one unit. We also got to consider the risks. And what is risk? So we're going to define risk, anything that could damage the performance of our assets. And the most important thing we need to look at, I believe, is training. This keeps us being successful in what we do. Also noting that there always is some type of risk in anything that we do. The true question is, how do we mitigate the risk, and how much risk are we willing to take or accept? Now, when we look at the assets, I've taken the assets and defined them and put them in a list format, but I've taken the most important asset and started from the top and went down to the bottom. I'm going to highlight the first one, of course, and I'll highlight 2 in the middle, which will be the electronic medical records, and I'll also highlight the care providers, and I'm going to also highlight food, so that kind of gives you the high, the medium, and the low as far as how the risk is obtained. Not to diminish anything in the middle, those items are there, but overall, a lot of these items interact and work together as a unit. So things are dependent upon other things. So hospital security is the shell of the whole hospital, and of course they protect the physical building of itself. I've highlighted HIPAA laws. They're intangible, but those are guidelines that you're going to use in order to ensure that your medical records, your computer infrastructure, even how your providers provide their services to the patients, and how they treat their information that they're going to obtain from them and receive, and how they store it. Human resources has been outlined because they manage the people within the hospital to ensure that they're aligning with the HIPAA laws as well as other administrative things. In addition, your pharmacy is very important, because people go to the hospital to get sick. They need to have medication, and the patients are very intangible, but you're there to treat the patients. And food came in last. The risks to food and patients are low, but that will be based upon what their needs are as well. So outlining these assets is a key part in understanding how they work. Is an essential part of protecting the hospital as far as your risk management is concerned. So since we had 10 items that we ranked out, like I stated before, the hospital ranking was 10. The medical records came in at 6, our providers came in at 5, and the food service came in at 1. And we took the probability and the criticality of those items, gave them rough numbers. You're familiar with probability and statistics, knowing that you're never going to get 100% of something. We're gauging our highest score to be 14 based upon training. Probability was 1, and 1 would be low. 3 would be considered a very high item or concern, which comes with 10 plus 1 plus 3 will get you 14. And that's how we viewed hospital security. And just to highlight that item, which was training, if our personnel aren't trained properly, there's a large risk of a breach of someone coming through the hospital that could cause great danger in the patients or the people providing their services. The electronic medical records was the next thing that was a high risk, and that is also outlined and guidelined by your HIPAA laws as well too. So you want to make sure that you're following these rules based about HIPAA, because if you don't, then you could possibly be fined as well. And you also run the risk of divulging critical information about a patient. How the records are stored, I gave two examples. You can store them in the cloud, you can store them on site. And both of those have different cost factors and values that are added to kind of get them a little bit in the middle, per se. We scored them at 11 as well too, respectively. The providers is a large group of people. You're not limited to doctors, nurses, orderlies, your cafeteria people, your staff people. All these people make up a large part of the hospital, and they fall right respectively in the middle. I would like to point out that when you look at user error, which popped up twice, and it did also pop up in other assets as well, the user is a key part of how they operate within the hospital. If they don't operate properly, we run the risk of kind of having havoc and mayhem, and with the proper training that reduces those risks as well too. In addition, food service, we respectively came in at 111, scored 1 across the board. And now looking at this, I noticed that was 1-1. That score should have technically been 3 for the score of food service. But again, still, it was 1 average of 3 at the very end, and that's still going to be a very low item as far as risk is concerned. When we look at the risk chart, we rate the risk chart very low as a 1 and very high as a 3. And of course, respectively at the top. So you take your probability and you look at the probability of something. So you have a 1 for very low, and then you have a 1 here at your left side as well. Then your bell curve is gonna put you at a very low. And what the chart does is it gives you a picture of what it looks like when the numbers hitting very high. We had one that was at a 14, which is very high. And when you look at the risk of those items, you want to focus on those to reduce the risk as well, to ensure that you're not having a substantial gap in that area of your hospital as well. And we took the risk as security as the number one item. That was a very large risk to consider. In hindsight, in a risk mitigation plan, I highlighted these three things I would definitely want to highlight. Be aware of the risk. If you're not aware of the risk, how can you protect against it? The most important thing to me was training, and more training. As long as we are training properly and to ensure that we're doing the right things in our daily work environment within the hospital, we are also mitigating the risk and reducing the risk as well. Reduce user error. And we do that by continuously training to ensure that our people are up to date on what they need to do as far as how to mitigate risk, how to report it if there is a risk, which outlines in a hospital environment to safety. So safety is another key topic that probably should be a part of this as well. But I'll highlight safety as a part of, if you're safe, you're reducing risk. And if you're trained, you're going to continue to reduce risk as well. Thank you very much. It's been a very fun class. I'll go ahead and get this uploaded as soon as possible. I enjoyed the class, and I look forward to working with you all again. Take care.